Part of the Entertainment One podcast network and sponsored by Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, Grandad's Donuts in Hamilton, Planet of Sound in Toronto and Ottawa, and the Humber College School of Creative and Performing Arts, this is the 386th episode of Creative Control with Vish Khanna, featuring a panel discussion about podcasting, recorded live on Friday, March 23rd at the Transac as part of the 2018 Long Winter Festival in Toronto, Ontario.
Live from Long Winter at Transac in Toronto, it's Long Night with Vish Khanna! This month, Vish welcomes the hosts and producers of Landlord and Tenant, Hartnett, Minds of Madness, The Secret Life of Canada, Alone, a Love Story, Your House Band is the Bicycles. Now please give it up for Guelph's sexiest podcaster, Vish Khanna!
Hi. Good evening. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. It's nice to see you all. And our theme tonight is podcasting. We're talking about podcasts. Does anyone in the crowd like podcasts? Wow, that's great, because over the last 5 or 6 decades, podcasts have really exploded as a platform. I think we can all agree. It's all people talk about. But a lot of people, you've been with your parents or other people, and, other people, and they say, you tell them you listen to a podcast, and they say, well, what is a podcast? Why is a podcast? How is a podcast? When is a podcast? These kinds of things. Who is a podcast? Have you heard these questions? Anyone? Yeah, of course you have. Of course you have. You're a genuine audience that cheers when you feel like you should cheer. That's good. That's the way you are. So on tonight's show, we have an excellent panel of podcast hosts and producers, and we're going to meet them all right now. Would you like to meet our panel, everyone? That's excellent. And so I'm going to ask each of the people on this stage to introduce themselves by name, talk a little bit about what brought them to podcasting, perhaps, and to talk about the shows they're representing tonight. And why don't we begin at the end of the panel here?
Hi, I'm Katie Jensen. I came to podcasting in 2009 when I was a host of a college community radio show in Hamilton, and I kept doing it after university. And to do that, living in Toronto, I had to learn how to syndicate my own show. So started learning in GarageBand, and then eventually moved over to Adobe Audition. And then when I was kind of working a downtown Bay Street job, decided I really wanted a creative career, and went back to school for a postgrad, and then started working at Canadaland, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard if you're into Canadian podcasting. Worked there for 2 years, and then as of January last year, I started going freelance, and now I've produced in the last year. I've produced for The Secret Life of Canada for St. Joseph Media. I've produced for Vice. I've produced for Metro News. I make this show called Safe Space, which is really fun. It's a pop culture and politics podcast that I do every week. And a bunch of others, one that's coming out through the Atkinson Foundation. I think at any given time I'm working on 5 different shows for various competing media companies, which is kind of fun. I love taking calls from one media company when I'm working in the hallways of another, just to kind of,
Should you be saying that on this podcast? People,
why not?
A small number of people will hear what we're talking about
Good.
right here.
Let them. Yeah.
So do you prefer the freelance to, so you were saying that you were primarily working at Canadaland. Was that your primary gig for a while?
Yes, I did do a little bit of work with students who are deaf and hard of hearing at George Brown, which I still do. But that was I wouldn't say 9 to 5. I would say that was like my 10 to 11, like 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. So.
Right, it was long hours.
Yeah.
So Canadaland, as I recall, exploded.
It did.
Got very successful. Mm-hmm. And were you there when it was sort of,
I was
ascending?
I was the first employee, so
okay.
I wasn't there when Jesse started on his own, but I came about maybe 4 months after he started making the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any sense of why it took off, so to speak? Was it any particular reason?
I think there's always going to be a huge need for media criticism that's clear-eyed and doesn't have any allegiances to particular advertisers or particular media interests.
Right.
So that's why I think it really became of interest, and I've heard it compared to Canada's version of Gawker, and Gawker was huge when it was around, and I know it's still around, but it's kind of taking a different form. So really served a niche, and I think that's why it really exploded when it did.
Right, and now, not to dwell too much on Canada Land, but it's a pretty big network here now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Is it the biggest Canadian podcast network?
Well, I would say it's probably the biggest independent podcast network.
Right.
The numbers don't compare anywhere near to CBC podcasting, but they're still very, very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And today, I know you mentioned 5 shows that you're working on.
Yes.
And some of them contradict one another, and some of them one of them might be mad at you for the anyway.
They do. Yeah, they do get jealous.
Do they get jealous?
Yeah.
Are you representing anyone in particular here today?
Oh, probably. I guess The Secret Life of Canada is what I'm representing, which is the podcast that I helped co-create with Leah and Phelan. Has anyone listened to The Secret Life of Canada? Yeah. So Leah and Phelan came to one of my Pay What You Can workshops for artists and people of color and racialized people, low income. I did a series of these last summer, and the very first one they showed up to, and they had this amazing idea. So I kind of approached them after and was like, we need to find a home for this. And then I had been approached by a media company to make a podcast for them that was all about Canada 150 and history, and I thought this was a great fit. And since then, we've, I think we're at over 250,000 downloads now. And yeah, after 6 episodes, we hit that, and we've been number 2 in Canada for all of September last year. We've charted since then. And we were named Best of 2017 by CBC Arts and the Globe and Mail. And as of next month, we'll be on podcast playlist 3 times. So that's pretty good for an independent.
Great. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll hear more, but again, how about a round of applause for Katie?
Thanks,
Jensen.
guys.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you. All right, we move down from Katie. You, sir, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm James Hartnett, and I do the Landlord and Tenant Pod Mess with my friend Mike Balazo over here.
Now, you say friend.
Yeah.
Can you clarify the relationship a little bit?
On the podcast, we're kind of in character, and we hate each other viscerally.
Right, and you have roles.
That's right.
You're
I'm the landlord of a really decrepit building that I inherited, and I do not take care of. And Mike is sort of a hard-done-by tenant in the building. And the sort of question of the podcast is, can a landlord and tenant be buddies? And so far, the answer is no. And each week, we're both in the comedy world. We both are comedians. So each week, we bring on a different comedian who plays a character on in the building in some way. They live in the building, or they have something to do with it, including, I might say, the bartender, Tom Henry, over there, is a very funny stand-up comedian.
Oh.
And was on episode maybe 10. Check it out.
And who did Tom play?
A hitman who lives in the building.
A hitman.
Yeah.
Just a hitman.
I think it was a hitman to the stars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So ask him about it.
It was one of our biggest episodes.
Yeah. Way to go, Tom.
Well, there's a big following for hitmen, I think.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I'm not. I was just saying there is. Anyway, and you, sir, who are you?
My name is Michael Balazo, and I am the co-host and co-creator of the Landlord and Tenant Pod Mess. How many of you here tonight are big, huge fans of this comedy podcast?
All right.
All right. Yeah, and we've been doing it for just over a year. We celebrated our year anniversary at the end of February, I think.
End of February. So what, beyond the fact that you come from what you call the comedy world, why did you want to start a podcast together in this day and age?
I think we both worked on a handful of CBC radio comedy shows as writers or occasionally guests a few times.
No, just writers.
Just writers. Yeah. Well, I was a guest once on day 6. But we, I guess, listened to a lot of comedy. Not comedy. Well, they used to do humorous editorials. And I occasionally would write and perform a humorous editorial that, and they were, just not very popular when I did them.
So did you interact with the host as Brent Bamber?
No, they were kind of hermetically sealed off from the rest of the show. And I don't think they're available online anymore. But
They took them away from the internet? They
I
were
think
so bad that...
they just deleted my editorials from complete episodes, I think.
Wow, were they really that bad?
I think maybe I'm just...
Oh, yeah, maybe you're just being hard on yourself.
Who knows, yeah. But,
anyway, so you do like each other in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are holding hands on stage right now for anyone listening at home.
We can see that you're not doing that. But anyway, so you start. Where did the idea for the podcast come from? Because the comedy podcast world, very full, lots of different options. It feels like, I think, and maybe I'm wrong about this, and someone here can correct me, but I feel like comedy fans were really the first to really push podcasting out there. It felt like initially, and then
That is correct.
that is true, right? Thank you. Okay, well, we'll get to you in a moment. But yeah, she's backed me up, so that's great. It really did seem like a really like an important outlet for comedians. Is that fair? You guys come from what you call the comedy world. Is that fair?
I think so. I know, because I know we didn't want to do something that was ourselves talking about comedy, and instead wanted to do something that was more performative.
Right.
In character, and
which isn't as popular as people just talking about their careers, apparently, from what we've learned.
The star power and the celebrity and whatnot.
Right.
You have guest stars. I mean, who's the biggest? I know you talk a lot about Ben Mulrooney.
Yeah.
James's character is a big friend of Ben Mulrooney's.
We go to Raptors games and clubs together in the show.
He doesn't sound like a very honorable fellow in your depiction of him.
In the show, in this fictional universe, he's kind of a bit of a tool, like me in the show, too.
Right, exactly, right. So there's a reason you two would get along. But are you chasing after those big gets, so to speak, to be...
Not Ben Mulrooney particularly, but we like to... Yeah,
we had Chip Zdarsky.
Chip Zdarsky, the comic book legend.
Yeah.
Right.
We've had...
Thank you.
CBC Radio 2 morning host Raina Douris was a guest. She was very, very funny.
And some really,
Oh, Ennis Esmer, actor on...
The Listener.
But also Red Oaks and Blind Spot on NBC.
Okay. So you do get some bigger guests, and does that help the show?
Those episodes get a lot more downloads for sure.
Yeah, they do. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's good. I mean, I'm happy you're here, and we'll get to more of you later. I want to move on to other people. How about a hand for James and Michael from the Landlord and Tenant Podmess? Thank you. Okay, we move down the line. You were backing me up moments ago, which I appreciate. I knew that's what you would do, joining me on stage. Please introduce yourself to these people.
My name's Michelle Parise. I'm the creator of a podcast called Alone, a Love Story on CBC Original Podcasts. And I'm really new to podcasting, but not new to radio. I worked at CBC Radio for 22 years. And,
That's great. So you and I would have met in the hallways of the CBC at some point, I would think.
Yeah, when I worked for CBC Music.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So I am curious. You say that you were in radio for 22 years. Were you at a point where everyone was talking about podcasting, and you're like, what is this podcasting crap? What are they talking about?
No, actually... What happened was, in my spare time, I wrote a book, and then it was going to be published, and then I decided not to publish it, and then I was just sitting on this giant body of work that I'd written, which is a memoir. And then I was at a party with a lot of CBC people, and we were all drunk, and people kept going what's happening with your book? What's happening with your book? And I was like, I don't know. And then this young woman, Veronica Simmons, said, why don't you stop calling it a book and just start thinking of it as a story?
Right.
And I was like, yes, shut up, everybody. I just want to talk to this person. And we had this idea that we would just turn my story into an audio memoir. And that's basically, we just created these little vignettes, because I write in a short story style. It's true stories, but I write as a short story. And then there was a Wired article that the people from Serial and S-Town were quoted in saying the next thing we'd love to do is, a first-person narrative over several things, and that's our dream thing. And I was like, I already did that. And so I just took that quote, and I put it in an email to the head of CBC Podcast, and I said, not if CBC does it first. And then I attached these 8 little vignettes that I had made in my spare time.
Right.
And they were like, yes, please.
Right.
And so, the first season was released in September, just September 2017. And we're at 2 million downloads already, which is great. It was 1 million in the first month and a bit, which is crazy. We batch released, so that means all 10 episodes were at the same time, which CBC had never done before, because it's sort of bingey, I guess.
It's a binge listening experience.
It's binge listening,
Right.
and a lot of people listen to it all at once, which is crazy. It's 3.5 hours long, and they're 20 minutes each, about kind of that. Yeah, and so now we're just finishing season 2, and it's coming out April 4th.
Congratulations, that's amazing.
And it will also be batch released, all at once. So everyone can binge it and cry. And
I was being a little facetious earlier about your radio background and podcasting, but I know there were some people who were didn't really, in radio production, who didn't, either they got into it right away, they're like, oh, this is a whole new frontier, this is just what we do. Katie, you were saying you come from radio as well. I come from radio. Were you at all cynical about the podcast universe as it might relate to radio?
No. I mean, I've totally been at CBC forever, so it's all I know. But most of our shows are podcasts as well.
Yeah.
But they're not they weren't in the past made to be podcasts until the department CBC Original Podcasts came about. And so I think when you think about podcasts as a medium, it's a different idea. And then for my story, it was just podcasting seemed like a perfect. I swear all through it. It's full of sex. It's full of crazy stuff that you can't put on the radio. So can I swear on this panel?
Yeah, you can.
I keep editing myself. I've stopped myself from swearing.
Do you want to swear right now just to get a little?
No. I just feel I don't want to mess this up for you.
I'm gonna have to edit that out for the radio version of this show.
So for me, the podcasting was perfect for this story because it's full of sex and swearing.
Well, okay, so the other side of what I'm saying, and again, Katie, feel free to chime in a little bit. Listening habits. The way people listen is what you're talking about too. So, I mean, we used to wait. We used to if you yeah, I don't know why I quoted that band, but still, it's a real expression. We used to wait.
We used to wait.
So your show would be on, say, Sundays at 2 p.m. and every week we'd have to wait for it, and now it's the binge thing. Has that changed? Is podcast and streaming services, Netflix, these things, have they changed our way of processing? Katie, you're shaking your head.
I'm shaking my head because, as Michelle said, they batched it out, but that was a new thing for them. And there are lots of podcasts that still do appointment listening. And whenever I'm teaching people how to do podcasting, I highly recommend releasing at the exact same time every single week or bi-weekly, because people have routines. They want that podcast on their app when they go out for their morning commute. Stats have shown that people listen between 7 and 8 a.m. and 11 and 12 at the evening. So people have baked in podcasting into their routines, and appointment listing is still very much of the essence.
Right. Okay. All right. So it's going well. Did you actually,
going well.
I know you say it's a memoir. Do you want to say anything more about the story itself as it goes? Feel free to talk about the show a little bit more.
Okay.
I'm a little bit more. I understand that it's personal.
Yeah, it's very personal. It's a memoir. And it's just about, it's a love story, as it says. It's about love and loss and life after a giant bomb hit me, which was my husband having an affair. And so that could just be whatever. So what? Get over it, lady. People have affairs all the time. But I think
I don't
if
think
you
anyone
listen
says
to
that.
it,
No one says that. I've never heard anyone say that.
No?
Get over it,
Okay.
lady.
Get over it.
People have affairs all the time.
They
No one says
do.
that. I guess they do. Yeah, it's true.
But
I'm so naive.
it's more. So it's just about what it is to be alone, what is loneliness, what it is to be. I was 37 at the time. And single for the first time in my life. So it's a lot of I was never single before. I had never dated, and then all of a sudden it was apps and texting, and I sound like 100 years old.
No.
And there's texting now. So it's that story, and this season in particular coming up, the second season, it's basically my way of dealing with the grief and shock of my life just exploding was to become an alcoholic basically for about a year and sleep with everybody in the city of Toronto. And that was just a period of time, and I'm not ashamed to say it because it's not like ongoing or whatever.
I didn't know that was happening. I mean, I guess I should have checked in. I'm sorry.
That might be why there's 2 million listeners.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's amazing.
But
okay.
it's more than that. But
No,
anyway,
absolutely. And we'll talk more about it in a bit. How about a hand for Michelle? Parise? Thank you for being here.
I'm going to have wine now.
Yeah, have a drink. You deserve it. Okay, and we're last but not least, sir, please introduce yourself.
My name is Tyler. I'm the host of the Minds of Madness podcast. I'm expecting crickets, but does anybody heard of the Minds of Madness? Crickets. Crickets.
Some twisted crickets out there into your murder podcast.
Yeah, we aren't fun. We do true crime. We started in January of 2017. I was going to say, we always think it's 2016 because that's when we started writing. But
you started writing it a year ahead of releasing it?
December of 2016.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry.
Anyway, we started, first episode was released January 2017. We started off as it was just me. I wanted to be, telling the stories. I was listening to true crime. I was absolutely fascinated. After Making a Murderer, I totally got right into it.
Which I binge watched, by the way.
Yeah, well, I don't
at
think
my in-laws in Edmonton.
Yeah.
I thought it was boring.
During Christmas, you found it boring?
Yeah, it was nothing compared to the Jinx.
Oh, that's true.
Jinx
The Jinx
was awesome.
was
The
Jinx
ending,
was way better.
Ending was incredible.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. The Jinx was better. Why you have
That's
to,
right.
Yeah.
You're so competitive. You got the 5 shows
Yeah, I'm
competing against
competitive.
each other. Now you're like the Jinx and Making a Murder. What's wrong? Everyone can have everything. It's fine. Katie.
I'm an alpha. What can I say?
It's true. It's true. Sorry, Tyler.
I would say the Jinx was better.
The Jinx was awesome. Yeah.
So, and then I went online and was like, what do you do after you've gone through Making a Murderer? And then so I started talking about Serial. And I hadn't really listened to podcasts. I used to be a big OTR fan, like old time radio, audiobooks. When I was at work, I wasn't listening to music. I had my headphones in. I was listening to audiobooks. And so I listened to Serial and I was just blown away. Went through all of the big ones, like Undisclosed, Truth and Justice, and I primarily stuck to the true crime because that's where my interest was. And
well, now let's home in on that for just a moment because I was a big true crime person myself growing up as a boy. I don't know why I was allowed to watch all that stuff. I'm fine. But Bill Curtis, remember A&E, that guy? I would watch him all the time, and I would just be complete, like a Sunday afternoon, they just have all these murder shows, and I was completely engrossed in it. And then, this Serial thing happened, which it's safe to say Serial changed the podcasting landscape. No one is disputing.
Most definitely.
I feel like Michael would dispute that.
No, I'm in complete agreement.
Okay, good. James?
I'm also in agreement. Sorry.
Right, the comedy world is on side. That's
whenever
great.
you ask anybody, they always say the first podcast I listened to was Serial.
Serial was, I remember, who can speak to this? I was at CBC when, before Serial, and BS, we call it. And I had a podcast where I had breakfast with bands, and it was doing fine. We had our little podcast hub. We were the freaks who got to try stuff out and do stuff. So I had a podcast, and it was fine. And then when I switched departments, they were like, we can't figure out podcast. No one listens anymore, and we don't know how to monetize this, so it's done.
People still don't know how to monetize their podcast very well.
It's true, I don't.
They really don't.
I don't. Can you help?
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, but my point is, then Serial happened, so AS, and then it was amazing. All of a sudden, CBC got right on board, and they're like, and then they made a Serial-like podcast, I believe, right? Called Someone Knows Something. So true crime is my point here is that Serial not only changed the podcasting landscape and I think re-injected it with energy, but it really turned this industry, like this true crime industry, seemed to come up.
It is a very saturated.
It is, right?
Yeah, it's that particular category. It seems like every week there's another true crime podcast starting. We were lucky. I think we got in at the right time. Like I said, it was just me in the beginning, and then my lovely wife, Beck, started getting involved. Her background is television production, and she said, if you would just listen to me, the show will do great. And I listened to her. And so, after our first year...
Beck and I went to high school together, and that's
I
how
think
we
that's
met.
how I ended up here.
That's true. It's true. And so,
But-
I can see
Yeah.
her
So
cracking the
basically,
whip.
you're nothing without her.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, no, she.
This
no,
is
but
being
she,
recorded. I'm going to say that.
You need a vision, right?
Yeah.
You need some. What were you doing that Beck kind of changed?
Okay,
Because the show.
She brought in she humanized it. I was just regurgitating all the information I was finding online. I was like, I would go to the news articles and write my script based on what I could find online. When she got involved, she started involving families of victims and giving a voice to the voiceless. And what she's done has been amazing. After our first year, 20 episodes, we had a little under 3.5 million listens. So,
amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
And now, so in recent weeks, your show has been profiled on CTV News.
We were on CTV News. Toronto Star did an article on us. Toronto Life did an article on us.
All the big murder press.
Yeah, all the murdery stuff.
Toronto Life. That seems weird.
That's where I get all my murder news.
Death podcast.
Toronto Life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, it was a very flattering article.
No,
It
sorry.
was really
I didn't mean to dismiss your Toronto Life profile. I just was making
And
jokes.
we're going to be on Your Morning Monday morning at 7:30 on CTV. So we're going to be doing live television.
So what do they want to know about? Are they coming? Like, obviously, it's great. Like, I understand why they'd want to talk to you, but all this mainstream media is talking to you. Can you give us a sense of what the gist of what their angle is with you guys?
Number one,
they've seen you take off, right?
Number one, we do it in our basement. Everybody seems to be fascinated by it. When the CTV news anchor goes, so there's this Brampton couple, and they're doing it from their basement?
Right.
So that seems to be a very fascinating point.
It's an underrated part of the house.
Yeah. It's
I got a lot done in the basement.
Yeah, we had a closet kind of room, storage room. We turned it into a studio. So yeah.
Right. So they wanted the scrappiness of the production that appeals to them. Yeah.
And also I guess the fascination is because it's the two of us doing it together. And in our last, well, not the very last one, but before that, we did a 3-part series on a young man that died at his friend's house under unusual circumstances. They said he died of natural causes, yet it was an open investigation for about 6 years. When we got involved into it, involved with the family, originally we have a sideshow for our Patreon supporters that Beck does called Beyond the Madness. And originally, because the mother had been on Nancy Grace, she was on Dr. Oz. Well, she was on Dr. Oz after she was with us, worked with us. But she'd been on a number of Levi Page's show. And so we thought, okay, well, she's had a lot of exposure. You don't want to keep doing the same case over and over again that other people are doing, because you want to have, keep it unique. Mm-hmm. And Beck got involved and really got involved to the point where she actually started working with the local police captain in Kokomo, Indiana, and got the investigation rolling again. And
from your basement in Brampton, she was working with the people in Indiana.
Brampton.
I understand the angle now. That's
and then she was on Dr. Oz after that, and Beck bridged the communication bridge between the mother and law enforcement.
Sounds like Beck brought like a journalistic aspect
to
it.
And I'm the voice.
And you're the voice. Well, it's amazing. It's an amazing success story. How about a hand for Tyler, Alan? All right. Congratulations. All right, that's our panel. We're just going to take a quick break right now, and when we return, we'll have more with this podcast summit on Long Night. Thanks for being here, and back with you in a moment. Thank you. We're back at the Transac here for a long night and this podcast summit. Thanks again for being here. We touched upon a lot of things there in the introductions, but I want to open the floor now to anyone who wants to start this line of questioning, because I feel like we all have, as podcast producers and hosts, a unique insight into the production and the reality of making podcasts that some people here might not. So why don't we begin by just talking about some maybe some misperceptions of the podcast landscape and measures of success. Katie, you were saying that kind of, pointedly, people don't know how to monetize their podcast properly. I'm sure that Michael and James can relate.
That seems cruel to.
I didn't mean to put you on the
pick
spot.
out us.
I didn't. I just was thinking.
As far as you know, we're making millions a month from our
Millions
our
of what?
very specific and regional podcast about
my understanding is that
Toronto real estate.
my understanding is that the house is quite decrepit, so I don't imagine you're raking it in at this point. Did I misspeak? Are you doing fine?
I mean,
We're losing
in
money
life.
month to month, but
Right.
we're trying to build up to the point where we can at least break even. But I'd like to know, Katie, if you could give us some tips on how to make money.
Yeah, I'm just curious what you meant by bringing that up at that point, because I think it's important. And I was serious. Like I've been doing the show for my show for 5 years, and sometimes it does okay, and sometimes it doesn't. And I don't know why. I mean, I know why people don't like me, but I'm doing my best. I can't be anyone else. You got to be you, right? Oh, thanks, Michelle. Michelle loves me.
Yes. I guess the common misconception that I hear a lot is like people come into podcasting expecting to make money. The reality is most podcasts not only will get almost no listenership, but will also make no money. Majority of podcasts get fewer than 200 downloads per episode. So to even get into the part of the conversation with a potential advertiser where they're even taking you seriously, you've got to be in that top 10% basically of people who are getting over 2,000 listeners per episode.
Right.
So that's a misconception I wish people would clear up. And in terms of how to make money, we've talked about crowdfunding a little bit on Patreon. You can approach like a specific advertiser, like the Caspers, the FreshBooks of the
Ghost?
world.
No, you mean the mattress company?
The mattress company,
Yeah,
the
sorry.
Endies of the world, if we're going to look at a more Canadian mattress company and say, hey, I've got this podcast, you want to underwrite it? It's the same thing that we see with underwritten TV shows as well.
Right.
Just to create kind of more of a branded experience. But, I always recommend people to just start small and tackle like a very niche local advertiser to say, hey, do you want to give me like $100 and I'll give you like a 30-second spot on my show?
Yeah.
Or approach a network like Antica, for example, to say, hey, do you want to do all the ad selling for me? I'll keep bringing the great content that I do, and then we'll take commercial breaks and you'll just insert those ads.
Right. No, it's true. Tyler, have you had experience other than ad revenue in terms of making money? Like, do you make money elsewhere from the show?
No, well, we're on a network, so
Do they pay you?
well, the advertisers do.
They advertise pay you.
Yeah. So
What network are you on?
actually, as of today, we just moved to Wondery.
Great.
So that's,
Can anyone tell everyone here what Wondery is exactly? Is that a big deal or not?
It's one of the largest digital media
I'm not trying to be
platforms.
sarcastic. The applause lady is laughing at me. No, there's a general audience. People don't know podcast networks necessarily. Wondery
I
is
think
a
it was
big...
a good question.
Thank you.
Yes, it's a good one.
It's
I
a
didn't
big
know.
deal, right?
It's a remarkably big deal.
Right.
So yeah, it just happened today.
Sure.
So thank you. Literally, the redirect happened at 10 o'clock this morning.
Oh, congratulations.
And I was looking at making sure that all the episodes were going through, and we were previously with Audio Boom, and it was good. We got enough ads through it.
Right. So is that the main deal then? Is it ads? What do you guys do for money? You two, James, Michael?
I mean, not this.
No, I mean,
Come on.
Well,
you mean this show, not this show? Is that
Oh
what you meant?
no!
Why would
the
you say that to me?
podcast.
I welcomed you to my show.
No,
There were snacks in the green
I'm
room.
grateful.
Oh, your
and I
own
think we are getting a
podcast.
stipend.
Okay.
I'd like to
Yeah.
apologize for my co-host.
You often have to. I know that's the way it works. That's the dynamic.
Yeah.
Do you have like? Is that your main thing? You have some ads sponsors? You don't have any sponsors.
No, we don't have
no.
any. We
We
no.
make fake ones
You
sometimes.
make the
and-
fake ones.
Yeah.
You guys have a theme song that I would describe as irritating. To
Mike
the ear.
wrote that. Mike
To
wrote
the
that.
ear, there's a keyboard sound that I
It's
urge
very-
you all to go home and just crank the volume.
Well,
all
you
the
like
way.
lo-fi, do you like early guided by voices? Because
I do.
I compare
do.
it to that kind of thing.
No,
And,
I do.
a little tape hiss, a little off-key
There's just
singing.
something about the keyboard that is very piercing to my brain when I have earbuds in.
Right, well, get
Could you
some
sing it?
beats.
Could you sing it?
Bicycles, can you play the theme song? No, they don't know. We'll
It's just the words landlord and tenant repeated twice with a sort of like a
Kind of a
70s...
Depeche Mode.
Yeah, so if you don't like...
Depeche Mode in hell,
Depeche
if I
Mode
might
and
say.
Guided by Voices
Guided
together.
by Voices.
yeah, you know, you
together.
can...
Yeah.
Everyone knows,
happened.
Yeah.
everyone knows what those
Yeah.
sound like together, right?
Michelle, you're on the CBC, so that's a big deal. And you mentioned that. Well, it is a big deal. You guys and Katie was saying it's the biggest podcast network there.
Big deal.
So 2 million downloads. You say, how does that compare? Is that are you doing really well on the network? Because that's impressive to me.
Yes.
Is the show doing well?
I mean, if you take the true crime podcast, Someone Knows Something, out of the mix,
yes,
then Alone, a Love Story does very well for CBC podcasts.
And so
compared to them, it's
right.
You can't even compare.
Well, I think most of us started our podcast from a place of love. I don't think we were. I mean, you want to succeed, you want it to resonate. Was anyone here like fixated on those numbers? Like, because I used to be. I'm competitive, and then I would see the numbers. I'm like, I should stop competing. I don't think I'm very competitive here. I'm just going to do the show that makes sense to me. Because I assume we all, is it fair to say, started doing something out of passion for what we were doing, right? Is that fair?
For
or was
sure.
anyone in
Yes.
it to make money and get a lot of downloads?
No.
And I mean, can anyone speak to feeling dissuaded from doing this when they see the numbers? Am I just talking about myself right now?
I think if we didn't,
Is this
if it
a
wasn't
therapy
going up-
session for
I
me?
think it's a vanity metric.
It's a vanity metric? What does
Yeah.
that mean?
Well, I mean that people look at it and they're like, it's kind of like looking at the scale in the morning and weighing yourself in the morning versus weighing yourself at night. It's like, I can either choose to live by that scale or I can just live without looking at those numbers and just do it because it makes me happy.
Yeah, no.
There you go.
There you go. That's
That's how
sense.
you should.
Right.
I mean, I have to look at the numbers because that's how CBC
Yeah,
will
I
give
mean-
me another season. But I hardly listened actually to any podcasts before, and so people are always like, "Well, what about the way that?" And I just say my sort of thing was like, "I'm just going to make this thing that I want to make, like it's a piece of art, and I'm just going to make it." And I don't really care what other people are doing. I care what you guys are doing. I care what other podcasters are doing.
We know where Michelle
I
stands
care
on the rest of us.
No, I care to listen and as a listener, but I don't want to like listen to other podcasts and then make my thing in relation to what other people are doing. I just do the thing that I want to do. I make the art that I want to make, and it looked like it was good. People wanted it. So.
So you didn't listen to podcasts very much before? You
Only
just-
Song Exploder, really. Like
Right.
Song Exploder religiously, but that's because I'm a music person.
Did anyone here come into podcasting by being like a hardcore listener, but then find that dropped down a little bit?
That was me.
You would listen a
Definitely.
lot, and then you
Yep.
started making your own.
Yeah,
And then it would stop.
I went through everything that I could find on Stitcher in the genre that I enjoyed, and I literally ran out, and that's when I thought, you know what, I'll probably start trying to do this myself.
Did you find that you didn't have time to listen as much because you were
With
making
my
your own?
job, I can wear headphones all
Oh,
day.
okay,
So
okay.
literally, even now, I probably get about 6 hours a day of listening.
6 hours a day of
Yeah.
listening.
What's your job?
I'm a telecom technician, so.
Oh, cool. So it's a lot of like
I'm
solo.
I'm in a big room full of loud, noisy equipment. So I've got my headphones on, and I'm just.
It's
doing
not
my
like
thing.
you're a paramedic or something.
No, not out saving lives.
I'm listening to Dirty John doing
Exactly.
heart operation.
Which is a Wondery show. Thank you very much.
For
Anybody
me,
else?
I listen to people all day long because I'm a radio producer.
Yeah.
So it's like that's why I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. It's just all day long. I listen to interviews and I do interviews and then I cut interviews and I mix interviews.
Right.
And so it's like when I go home, I just want to listen to music.
Yeah, no, and I had this. I was thinking of Katie with this question too. Like, did you, because you make so many, do you find you listen a bit less?
I listen to probably more podcasts than anyone here
Do you listen to more than you?
because I
ever
listen to
did?
them on 2 times speed. So there was, I don't know. I've got like I have kind of like a monkey mind. So
You listen to other people's podcasts on 2 times speed?
I do, yeah. And then that helps me cut faster because then I'm like I'm hyper cutting. So when I'm cutting banter and there's a lot of spaces, I take out a lot of spaces so it sounds a little bit more like what I hear when I listen to other podcasts. Yeah.
But then
Does
it's
that-
like
does that
4
drive-
times speed.
I know.
I did that once, and I gave my wife a panic attack.
Yeah, that's
She
giving
was
me
just
anxiety.
like, "What is going on?"
It's true. So sometimes my boyfriend who's in the audience, thanks for coming tonight, Tad.
Free plug for what's his name?
Tad.
Tad.
Yeah.
Sounds handsome.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Tad gets a shout out.
Yeah, so sometimes he'll like catch me listening to a podcast on my phone. He'll be like, I don't even understand what's happening right now. It'll be like, I'll be listening to like Sword and Scale or something. It'll be like, "Da-da-da-da-da-da-da," and you listen to Sword and Scale.
Another Wondery show.
Yes, another Wondery show. And it's,
I gotta get Wondery as a sponsor for this podcast now. I'm getting a lot of free love, if you ask me.
It's almost like when you're working like a retail job or something, and then you get into the point where you're just like rapidly not even looking at your hands when you're restocking cans or something. That's how I think listening to podcasts on 2 times speed feels. As soon as you start, your brain just like it catches up, but if you start in the middle of it, you're going to be like, this is way too fast.
Right.
Can I ask a question to the comedy guys?
Yeah.
Because
We'll
like
allow it.
comedy is about timing, right? So like, does that like offend you to hear that people will
No,
listen to
it doesn't
things
offend
on
me.
two-
It just makes my heart race because this morning by accident I hit the podcast thing to just 1.5 times speed, and I was like, "What is happening?" And I thought I was having an
That's
aneurysm.
my life.
I've tried 1.25, yeah, and it's like kind of okay, but yeah, upsetting. For sure.
Some of us like to hear Joe Rogan speak at his regular speed, right?
Is 1.25 actually an option?
Yeah.
Do you have an Android? I've never seen that.
Downcast.
What's that? That sounds
It's
sad.
a podcast app. It costs $1
Why?
because it's better than the Apple Podcast
I
app.
have the
I think stinks.
I have the Pocket Cast app now. I paid for the Pocket Cast app.
Oh, okay. See,
It's better organized.
I've never used anything but the
Same.
Apple one. I don't know why people use
try
anything.
Downcast. My
No
opinion.
thanks. I don't have $1 to spare for this.
$1.
Touche.
I've never heard anyone say try Downcast. Just
I
as
mean,
a way,
I
just
just
as a
think it's
sentence,
good.
it's weird.
Try being downcast
Try just
for once.
try being
That's-
Downcast.
Well, what do
once.
you got? You just use the regular podcast
Yeah.
app. That thing sucks.
Is Downcast the pod app developed by System of a Down? Is that their brand?
Surge
I think that's
Tankian.
the show, actually. We were talking about various things just a moment ago, and I can't remember what they are. Can we open the floor to challenges?
Can I ask you
Oh.
a question before we do that?
Yeah.
Is your Breakfast with Bands podcast still online?
No, they erased my existence from
Okay.
the network.
Did
Pretty
you ever?
much.
I'm sorry to hear that, but did you ever have breakfast with Moist?
Did I ever have breakfast with the band Moist?
Yes.
I did not have breakfast with the band Moist.
Boo.
Why do you
No,
ask
I have no
such a
further
specific
questions.
question?
Just a comedy word.
Just a big David Usher fan? Is that what
Well,
that
there
was?
was a pair of us here on stage. Yeah.
Do you really? Did you actually like Moist, the band?
Hell yeah! Leave it alone again tonight.
Silver?
That was good, right? Bicycles will back me up on that.
I don't think they will.
Okay, well.
Have you heard them?
Maybe they should.
Glycerine or no?
yeah,
that was
Resurrection, Black Heart. Hello, solo career.
Thanks for listening to Moistcast, everyone. How did this happen?
It's a Wondery show.
It's a Wondery show.
There you go.
Good Lord. I did want to ask about
The advertiser is-
challenges that you face with your shows. If you find that this is not really a question, I don't think, because everyone here seems to be doing so fucking well. But are there challenges for you in this landscape, an oversaturated podcast landscape? I know, Tyler, you were saying there's a billion things in your field, but
our challenge is time.
time?
Yeah, because I've got a full-time job, and we have 4 children living with us, so it's pretty much 9:30, 10 o'clock when they go to bed, and we're just giving it till like 1 o'clock in the
You
morning.
should try to live your life in 1.25 time.
If I could do
faster.
that, yeah.
That probably would work out better for you. You'd
Yeah.
be done everything.
Yeah, I could probably get a lot
Time.
more done.
It is crazy how much it takes me so long to make an episode of my show. Do you make your shows by yourself, Michelle?
Yes.
Well, you have your
2 of us.
But you have the two people. Yeah, and it
Yeah,
takes a long
but
time.
Veronica's
I mean,
great.
I wrote it all.
Oh, that's right.
I'm the writer, and then I
Yeah.
perform as quite performative because I'm not just reading it. I'm giving it, and
Yeah,
then,
yeah,
like
yeah.
you
What-
know, and then I mix it, I edit it, I write some of the music for it. All the photography and things that are on
Yeah.
the social feed is all mine. Like it's like a full. It's
These-
the full Michelle.
These things are like 1 or 2 person operations often, and I find mine to be quite time consuming. You guys, the landlord people?
Yeah, just does. Mike edits it. and-
Yeah,
How long
I did,
does
and
it-
I also write. I compose the theme song as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I edit it.
I think it
have a
sounds kind
headache
of like Guided
just-
by Voices and.
Depeche Mode. Yeah. Yeah, it takes. I don't know. It takes me like 2.5 hours to edit a 1 hour
2.5
episode.
hours. Yeah.
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 And I try and do it standing up. At the.
Do you have a stand up desk?
No, I just put it on the kitchen counter.
for you,
Is that
Mike.
for your back or?
Yeah, because if you.
Are you making this up? I have
No, I stand to do it.
I have 2 stand-up desks. It's great.
Really? I
It's
don't have
good
a,
for my back. Anyway,
Right.
too
I
much
produce
information
lying
about me.
down.
You produce on your back
Yes.
at 2 times the speed.
I don't produce at 2 times the speed. I listen.
Oh,
at
you
2
listen
times
at 2
the
times the
speed.
speed. Okay.
I produce at like 0.25 times the speed.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about speed and
Yeah.
velocity, but I am curious about you're in. Do you find that your field, your category, your podcast category, is as busy as Tyler's, for instance?
Like Canadian history. You
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, the Canadian history podcast category. Is that even
No.
a thing? I don't
No.
think that's a thing. What are you under, actually? Like, what is your-
Society and culture.
Society. What does that mean? Society
don't
and
know.
culture.
I mean, I guess history is
That's
a
a solid
facet of
category.
society.
Yeah.
We're in society and culture as
Is
well.
it a tough marketplace, so to speak?
Well, it's pretty crowded because it's such a wide category to fall under, right? That's where I think all the comedy podcasts fall under, right?
Well, I think there's a dedicated
they?
comedy.
Yeah, there's a comedy
category.
category.
No, comedy has its own
Yeah,
category.
and
But
in
it's
Canada,
a catch-all for like semi-funny interviewee ones, right?
Yeah, that's yeah.
like Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
Is he in comedy?
He shouldn't be.
Shots fired from the comedy world.
Oh God! If he hears this,
Yeah, he doesn't hear anything, I don't think. Okay, and Michelle, your show's, is it like the best, doing the best of all the shows about a woman that has a terrible life and then is suddenly okay? What's the nature of the show again? I think that's, no. Anyway, your show's doing well. It's doing well in its realm. Okay, I think
I have challenges.
Do you have
still.
challenges? I was going to say, like, did you finish that memoir that you were talking
Yes.
about?
No,
So
yeah,
it-
I wrote a whole book.
Yeah, no, I'm proud of you.
Oh,
That's
no,
great.
no,
No,
you
no,
don't have to be proud of me.
But that means that there's a finite life to the podcast, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's weird because, I mean, what I wrote chronologically ends, like the book ends in 2015. But it's like really a living document, so I don't know.
You're still
So-
alive, yeah.
I am
So
still living
so it continues. You could.
So often there are like I do a lot of flash forwards and flashbacks. I loved the TV program Lost, apparently.
Yes.
So sometimes I'm now. This is what I mean about the performing aspect of it, that I wasn't prepared for how much of a workout it is every time I go in the studio,
Yeah.
because it's like I'm narrator voice, and then I'm inside my head voice, and then I'm inside my head drunk voice, and then I'm dialogue me, and then I'm dialogue everyone else's dialogue.
Do you have an acting background?
Like, kind of. I mean, high school plays and things like that.
I don't think that counts.
I-
Does that count?
No, that is not an acting
It
background.
doesn't count, I don't
I
think.
basically no. I've been at CBC my whole adult
Right,
life, so
yeah.
I mean, I basically.
I think it
worked-
counts.
Pardon?
I think it counts.
The
You
high
think it
school
counts
acting?
High school
Why
acting?
not?
It's a little bit.
was
That's what
just-
everyone's glory days were, right?
I was just making a joke.
I was
No,
a
I'm
pink
sorry.
lady in Greece.
I can see that, actually. That makes sense
just
to me.
saying.
Yeah, no, anyway.
So there are challenges.
challenges,
So
yeah.
I didn't know I had to be an actor in
Right.
a real story, because otherwise you could just read it and then it would just be a book on tape. But that's fucking boring.
It's a
right?
very lively show, if I might say. Your show.
thank
I
you.
really like it. Yeah. Okay, we have to take another quick break before we wrap up. So we're going to take another short break, and we'll be back with you in just a moment. Thanks again for being here at Long Night. Creative Control is brought to you by the home audio experts at Planet of Sound. Get everything you need to make your records and TVs sound their best, plus join their Record of the Month Club to save 15% on a new vinyl album or classic reissue delivered straight to your door. Planet of Sound stores are located in Ottawa and Toronto, and for more info, visit planetofsoundonline.com so you can start listening to life the way it was meant to be heard. We are back on Long Night, and we have to wrap up our podcast summit. Have you guys enjoyed yourself in the audience? I have too. Thanks to you guys for being on this panel. I appreciate the conversation. I want to just go around the panel. First of all, Katie, are you eating an Easter cream egg on stage?
That's why I was late, because I went to Rexall to buy a cream egg.
You were late for the taping. Why? Are they that yummy?
They're so good. I haven't had one yet this year.
Well,
I thought I wanted one.
I'm glad we could document that on the show.
It's really
now,
good.
I thought we would go around the panel. Maybe we won't start with Katie because she's got a cream egg in her mouth. But I just want you to each sort of plug your show by, tell people where they can learn about it and listen to it. And also, if you have any thing to preview, anything you want to tell us about what's coming up on your shows, please do. And Tyler, do you want to start us off?
Okay. We're, of course, on iTunes, Stitcher.
What's your network again?
Wondery. Okay. Anyway.
It's good. Good for you.
Yeah, so, we're on every major podcast platform. Spotify, everything. mindsofmadnesspodcast.com is our website. Do I have anything to plug? No.
Well, you just did a bunch of plugging.
Yeah.
You were
I think I got it covered.
You were talking about your podcast.
Oh, yeah.
A second ago. Yeah.
That's right.
But what's coming up next? Do you have an episode that you want to talk about? Or do you save it?
Actually, yeah. Well, normally you kind of keep it in because you're always worried about, somebody else doing it before you. I would
Somebody
say
else
probably
doing a murder podcast?
doing the case that you're working on.
Do they rip? Oh, do they rip? Do you get ripped off? Like this? Your show?
I wouldn't call it ripped
It's
off.
more of a scooping thing.
Yeah, you just want to be
journalism.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to be the first out of the gate with some.
Oh, I see.
things.
Okay.
Fresh blood.
We're doing this story on a mother who lost her daughter. The husband went to jail for, I think it was 5 years. He admitted that she died, and he buried her body on a island, but wouldn't tell local law enforcement where the body was. We suspect the mother knows where her daughter's body might be, and through our contacts, we have access to a woman who has cadaver dogs, and we are going to try and get the cadaver dogs to the land and search for the mom's body. The mom's body, her daughter's body. So that's probably the biggest one right now. Oh, and I should say one more other thing to plug. We're developing a TV series. That just happened. Yeah, I can't believe I forgot about that one. Yeah,
I'm just amazed that you turned that story around.
Yeah.
So that by the end, people were clapping and cheering.
Yeah.
In my spare time, I'm going to get these cadaver dogs to go down and find a child's body. By the way, we're going to be on TV. Don't miss us. That was amazing.
Yeah.
That was that. I don't even.
My brain is actually going at 2 times speed right now.
I understand. It can be intimidating. I'm a parent. I couldn't. You're a parent too.
Yes. Yeah.
Isn't it difficult to make this show with all the horribleness?
It's awful, and we have a deal at home that I will not listen to the show or any other podcasts while the kids are around.
Sure.
We have had, I was cooking in the kitchen, it was playing, and then one of the girls is having nightmares. So you have to really, be mindful of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They are aware of certain cases that we work on, and have a vested interest, certainly when we're working with the families.
Yeah.
And
I mean, again, this is a hobby basically. Like you're doing this in your spare time. The show, I mean.
For me, it's my second job.
Right.
Beck is now working on the show full time.
Oh, good.
3 to 4 days a week.
All right, Tyler, congratulations again, and check out Minds of Madness. Michelle?
Yes?
Can you talk about where people can learn more about your show and listen to your show?
Yeah. It's called Alone, a Love Story.
You have
It
postcards?
looks like this. I have postcards.
I'm doing so many things wrong with my show.
That's all I got.
No, that's good.
Yeah, it's called Alone, a Love Story. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts. You can go to cbc.ca/alone, where I have more stories behind the stories and a ton of stuff about music, because there's a lot of stuff about music in this story. And season 2 comes out April 4th. All 10 episodes of season 2 will be binge released. So if you want to subscribe, that would be awesome. And you can listen to the first season to get up to speed on what's going on.
Nice.
So you will know what's going on with the sex and alcohol season, which is season 2. And you should listen to it. The Atlantic named it one of its best podcasts of 2017.
Oh, congratulations.
And that was a big deal for me.
Good for you.
Because it's the Atlantic.
That's amazing. Good for you.
There you go.
Congratulations.
If you want a postcard, they're in my pocket.
Nice. All right. Come see Michelle for a postcard. Okay, we move down the line here.
So the Landlord and Tenant Podmess, we have new episodes every Monday. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play if anyone uses that. I don't know if anyone does.
I think someone does.
Someone
I
does.
do.
Linda, our applause lady, does.
Right.
Hey, cool.
Great. Our next episode, the guest is one of the co-hosts of the Beaverton on the Comedy Network, Miguel Rivas.
Oh,
he's very
alumni of
funny.
this show.
Very funny,
Oh,
and he
okay.
plays himself and also a germaphobe tenant in the building. And Split-Siders Podcast Reviews once put us under the regular podcast reviews, under the shows we're also listening to, and just put the name of the podcast. So
Pretty good.
Yeah.
And thank you. And we're going to do a live show soon, but we don't know when yet. But follow us at LT Podmess on Twitter.
Nice. Okay. Now, how
Thank
does
you.
one get on your show?
Oh, you want to? Hey, let's do it.
fire us off an email.
Can I send you an email?
Please.
I wouldn't mind if Katie was on your show.
Sure.
I also
She's
think
funny.
Katie should be. She's
I think
funny.
Michelle
and eating
everyone
her
here.
Let's have
Easter cream
everyone-
eggs.
Just
and
a
like,
show.
I'm a very good
nosy
tenant.
neighbor, maybe. or
We'll
something.
redo it, except we'll be the moderators. It'll be way more badass.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had no plan. I just thought we'd come up here and everything would work itself out. I was wrong. All right. So did you plug where to go at the show?
Yeah, at LT Podmess on Twitter,
Okay.
and we also have a Facebook fan page on there.
Okay. Michael and James, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least over here, having just completed a tasty chocolate egg.
That's true. Now I'm going to make all those weird mouth sounds like...
Yeah, I'll edit them out.
Don't you hate
I'll
that?
put them through a filter. Anyway, Katie.
I'm very excited about the next 2 episodes of Secret Life of Canada because we did this crazy double recording session last week. And that's because Phelan is now directing a play in Victoria and Leah's going to be traveling to Alberta. So we did this 8-hour recording session. And one of the next episodes is about the secret life of Canadian snacks. So we basically made this giant feast and just binge ate all these disgusting foods. But being the producer, I got to listen to those sounds in my headphones. And also we drank a fair amount of Canadian drinks. A lot of alcohol, but it's very funny. It's I can't wait to edit it. I was crying most of the day from laughing so much.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You can visit us at thesecretlifeofcanada.com and you can support us on Patreon. Right now we're independent, so I post a lot of bonus stuff that doesn't make it into the episode for people who support us at $20 a month on Patreon. So if you're a diehard fan, you can listen to all this really funny stuff, really heartwarming stuff that doesn't make it in. And check it out. Thanks for listening.
Katie Jensen, everybody. All right, well, we're pretty much done. My name's Vish, and I host Creative Control with Vish Khanna, which is the show that these people are on right now, and you're on it now, too. Yeah. It's available on all the podcast platforms, and I'd like to thank all my sponsors and the listeners and CFRU 93.3 FM and the Long Winter crew and all of you for being here tonight. And please subscribe and listen to my show and follow me on Twitter at Vish Creative and at Vish Khanna. And I will talk to you very soon. How about a hand for all of you for being here? Make some noise for the bicycles. We'll talk to you next time. Good night, everybody. Good night.